Hello, Alex Jill.
Hello, how are you? Can you hear me?
Hello, Alex Jill. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. How are you?
Alex, I was hoping to see you. I was hoping you were going to make it.
Of course. It's nice to see you. You're taller since the last time I saw you. You've been eating good.
It's nice to see you virtually.
I wish I was there in person.
Yeah, I also wish that. Okay.
Hi to you. Thank you for coming on. You can't see me, don't worry.
Hi, Tunde. I can hear you, though.
Okay, you can hear me, but you can't see me. Okay, let me come to where you can see me. Okay, so I hope, where is the camera now? Okay, yeah. All right, I know you can see me now. Okay, thank you for coming on. It's not yet. Nice to have you here. Thank you so much. So we are ready for you. I know you would have loved to be here in person, but don't worry. COVID will be over, and then we'll bring you back. All right.
When this is over, I go back.
Okay, let me hand over to Solomon.
The paper we want to listen to, the presentation we want to listen to, is entitled Fundamentals of Digital Archives and Exhibits, and is going to be delivered by Dr. Alex Jill of the Columbia University in New York. You have our ears. Thank you once again for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. All right. Hi, everybody. There's a little echo. James, is James doing the technology? Because I can hear myself again. When I speak, I hear myself. Oh, it's better now. It's a little better now. Okay. Hello, everybody. So before I begin, I wanted to ask, is there anybody from the library? Is there a librarian in the classroom? Or is everybody a researcher? This is teachers and researchers.
We have many librarians here.
Okay, good. Good. I am going to be talking about this new practice of creating digital collections, which are very useful, obviously, during the time of the pandemic, because we cannot go necessarily to the library. Not everybody can go to the library. So sometimes the best we can do is just log in online and look at some of these collections online. They can be, of course, collections of ebooks, or they can be collections of primary sources. Sometimes we investigate manuscripts, recordings, images that are not produced by us, but are part of the cultural record. This is especially true for people who work in the historical disciplines. So historians, literary historians, art historians, language historians, etc. We often look at the primary sources online in order to be able to do our work, to do our research. What I am going to be talking today is about the sort of production of these digital collections, because one of the things that are now new because of the accessibility of computers. Now, more people have laptops, more people have internet, more people have computers at home, including academics. That means that many academics are creating their own digital collections. They're creating their own digital exhibits, and I will define these things. I will show you examples. So it's not only libraries. So yes, libraries do this work. When libraries do it in a very professional, labor-intensive way, but they are not the only ones doing digital collections. Now, many professors, many students, and actually many people from the public, from the general public, in nonprofit organizations, in museums, in galleries of art, are doing this digital collection. So it's and this is happening everywhere. It's happening in South America, in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, and the United States, of course, because there's a lot more money here to do these kinds of things. So they're very common here, but that doesn't mean they're the only ones doing it. I can show you examples from Africa, South America, and Asia. Happy to do so because it's a very common practice. So today, I'm going to be talking about the production of these things. I'm going to start by defining. So the lesson has 3 parts. I'm going to start by defining these things. Then I am going to show you a tool that you can use. And then I'm going to conclude by I'm going to show you a tool that you can use to produce them. The tool is called Omeka. It's free and it's easy to use. So and then I'm going to conclude by having a conversation about the possible things you might want to do with this. Hopefully we can use private chat, right, where you can ask me questions. I'm guessing Solomon or James or Tunde can take questions from you and you ask them on the chat or something like this. We'll figure it out. So 3 parts. One part, I show you what these things look like and show you examples. And then I show you a tool that you can use. And then we conclude with questions and conversation. We have, I think, 2 hours. So let's get started. We'll take a small 2-minute, 3-minute break in the middle so I can get some water, go to the restroom, this kind of thing. So, all right, let's get started. First of all, let's define our concepts. The first concept, the most important one, I think that we want to define is the concept of document. This is not that easy once you start like thinking about it in practice, but superficially, it's something people understand right away. What is a document? Because I have a book, I have a painting, I have a letter. No, I don't want to share my screen yet. I'm talking. You can just see my face. I'll let you know when I want to share my screen. I hope I don't have to go into details about what a document is. Everybody in this room should know what a document is, right? This is the fundamental unit of interest to people in the humanities. So we talk about the digital humanities. Let's talk about the humanities. Forget the digital for a second. In the humanities, people are interested in documents. People examine documents. Culture is made of documents. A building is a document. A painting is a document. A song is a document. All of these things have a material reality. And we call the unit or the individual unit a document because it documents. It is a witness. It is a testimony of the people who made it, of what they were thinking, etc. So this is what we call. This is why we also speak of documentary evidence, right? Anyways, so the document is the unit. That's great. I apologize to all the linguists in the room because for the linguists, they're like, what? Sentences are the documents. Like words that is the evidence. But when we speak from the point of view of a material history, we always say that those sentences are to be found in material reality, and that material reality brings us back to the document. An oral history is a document, and some poets in the 20th century would say that the speaker itself is providing documentary evidence with his voice. Anyways, it gets complicated when you start thinking about it philosophically, but we're going to avoid that. We're going to simply say that the document is going to be the unit for us. The second unit that I wanted to talk about before we start talking about digital collections. The second unit that is important to us is the citation, the link. On the internet, we speak of links. The citation is any reference to a document. It's not the document itself. It exists outside of the document, but it points to the document. It says, go find that document over there. So, of course, when we write research papers, we use citations to refer to other documents that are outside of our research paper. We don't copy and paste the whole document into our research paper. We say, go look at this other paper, or go look at this cultural artifact, right? I'm talking about this other thing that exists outside of this paper, and we use citations for this. On the internet, a link is a citation. A link is saying, look, this other web page is not here, but I'm going to point to it. Now you can click on it, and then you go and you go see that other document. But right now you're in this document. Now, many of you, the ones who are already are professionals and have been doing this for a million years, you know that we have rules for how to write citations, and you know how to follow them already kind of instinctively. You know how to write in, I don't know, what's depending on the style of your discipline, in APA or Chicago or MLA style. All of these things, you have rules that you follow in order to write your citations when you write them on paper. This is the beginning of what we could call structured data. Already in your citation, you're including information that is going to be useful to whoever going to find the other document. But that data is structured. It always has the same thing. So if you're, for example, pointing to another paper, it's going to have an author, it's going to have an author or multiple authors, it's going to have a title, it's going to have the press, the year, and the pages you're talking about. All of these things is very organized, and there are rules for how to write it. And it's no different in when we're talking about digital environments, and we're going to look at that. And this is something we can call a structured data, because you have data, but it's also structured in a specific way. And there's another word for this that we're gonna use a lot today, and that word is familiar to librarians. That word is called as metadata, because remember, this is not the document. This is a link to the document. So it is meta. It is not the original data. The original data is the document. This is data about the data. That's what we call it, metadata. So a citation is data about that other data that is over there. And that's why librarians use the word metadata. And at least a lot of librarian time and labor, like we pay these people called librarians, a lot of them, to do this work of writing metadata, of organizing metadata into indexes and catalogs that allows you then to find documents. So now that we have these two basic units, the document and the citation points to the document. Let's start building up to more complex systems. So when we have these units and we combine them, so we have multiple documents, multiple citations, we start forming complex systems. The first complex system, let's put the documents to the side for now. I'm going to park the documents to the side. The first complex system that I wanted to talk about is what we call the bibliography. Now, I hope everybody in the room knows what a bibliography is, right? Like, I imagine everybody in the room has at some point done works cited. You know, at the end of your paper, you say, these are all the things that I have talked about. That's a bibliography, right? It's a list of citations. So you have one citation that you have as a unit, but if you combine many of them, you have a bibliography. This is not hard to understand, but it is already a system, right? It's already several citations. Now people are starting to do these things online, but here's something that is very different from the online world and from the world before computers. Let's start with the world before computers. Before computers, we had citations that had to be written by hand, and they were manual, and they were published in a book, and they don't change. And so you collect a bunch of citations. You have put a bunch of bibliographies. For example, I was looking this morning at some bibliographies that were published in the 19th century in England, of all the books they stole from India, when all the books the colonizers stole from India. They are the historians who were enjoying these books of Sanskrit. They wrote bibliographies about them. So they knew all the books that had been stolen from India, and they wrote them down manually, right? So this is a very traditional form. You still, when you write your paper, you do it manually. You add every citation you use. But what defines our time, what is different now in the digital era, is that bibliographies can be generated automatically. You can create list of links automatically. This is an incredible difference, because it kind of changes everything. Now I want to share my screen. Share my screen. And no, I don't want to. Let me open up a new browser. Hold on. A new browser window. So the first example I'm going to show you is Google Scholar. I don't know if any of you have used Google Scholar. I can use almost anything. I can go to the Unilag library catalog to show you, and I will in a second. Let me just figure out how to open up a new. All right, share screen. Click the screen icon. Share the screen. New tab. All right, can you see my screen? Can somebody say yes or type it? I think you can because I can see.
Yes, yes.
All right, cool. All right. So Google Scholar. Let me load it. Google Scholar. There it is. All right. I work a lot on the poet and author. Like I have a book that my next book is going to be on the poet and author M.S. Ser, who is known as the father of the Negritude movement. If you remember, of course, Wole Soyinka, the distinguished professor in Nigeria, made fun of the Negritude movement by calling it by saying, "Oh, what if tigers needed a Tigritude movement?" That some of you may know this. But anyways, I work on this poet, so I'm going to look for him. I type his name on Google Scholar, and what I get is an automatic bibliography. This bibliography did not exist before. This bibliography was constructed for me based on Google's algorithm. This is incredible. If I type on one of these, let me see, I go to one of these things and I open it. If I type cited by and I open that, it actually creates another bibliography of all the people who cited that other first book. I'm constructing bibliographies on the fly very fast. This is new. So it's not only obviously Google Scholar, right? I'm going to go to this database that we use a lot here called JSTOR. If I type MS there here, and I hit enter, I get another bibliography. 7,416 items in this bibliography, all about MS. If I go to the University Lagos library, I imagine there's going to be a search box, and I'm about to do the same thing. There it is. Search. Library catalog. The link is not working. Let me do the open access. The link to the catalog is not working, but on my browser. And the Humanities and Social Sciences. This it's small enough that it could be manual. But anyways, on the search catalog, when it works and you do a search, it constructs a bibliography for you. This is important to note. I mean, I can show you the example of the Columbia University too, which is very similar. It's going to be similar. All the libraries kind of use more or less a very similar system called the OPAC. Necessary. Oh. So there it is, an automatic generated bibliography. This one has 575 results. There's books called by him, and it's created by the OPAC. Okay. So we have manual bibliographies and automatic bibliographies. And one of the things that is incredible about the digital era is that we are able to generate these automatic bibliography, and that they exist in many places. They exist in Google, the library catalog, these databases that we buy. All of them have this ability to do an automatic bibliography. So what if we add the documents directly to the bibliography? That is a digital collection. So that is what we came here to learn about. Let me define it for you very clearly. A digital collection is an automatic bibliography in which the documents are accessible through the automatic bibliography. It's the combination of the bibliography with the documents. So the citations together with the documents in the same place is what we call a digital collection. Now, let's look at some. JSTOR is one in which JSTOR is an example in which the documents are there with the citations. So if I click on any one of these results, I get the document. Another word for this, people say that database. People use the word database. It's a database, right? A lot of people say that. But I want us to call it digital collection in this classroom, because there's going to be some nuances and differences. And database is an incorrect way to call this, because database is just a piece of software that some of these digital collections have, but some of them don't. And I'm going to show you examples of digital collections that don't use databases. Database is a technological term that is not appropriate to describe what these things are. The important thing for us is to understand that digital collections are the combination of the bibliography with the documents themselves, with copies of the documents in many cases when they're digitized, right? They're not the original documents. They're digital photographies of documents. But in many cases, they are born digital artifacts. In those cases, there is no analog equivalent. All right. So a digital collection, again, is the combination of a bibliography with the documents. Okay? So you start thinking in your mind about all the different digital collections that you interact with. I imagine if you're in the academy, you interact with these things all the time. Now, let's, for example, like your own Dropbox. Some of you use Dropbox or Google Drive. Like that's your own private digital collection of your own documents. You can generate a bibliography and explore the bibliography in your file system. Click, boom, and you get the document. The whole world of the internet and personal computers is dominated by the idea of links and documents. You are surrounded by it. It's impossible to avoid it. The internet itself is composed of many documents called web pages. And you will find many bibliographies being generated in order for you to discover those web pages. Not only in google.com, but also like Facebook itself is a list of posts in which you get, this is what's called a feed, in which you get links to further documents. All right, let's share the screen again because I want to show you some of the most serious academic versions of this. So here, let me share again. So let me go back to Columbia University Libraries digital collection. Because these kinds of digital collections also have other things. The academic versions of this, they have other things that they all share in common. So I'm going to use the ones here where I work as an example. Oh, I could have stayed there. All right, so let me use the let's use the collection of playing cards. Why not? Okay, so this is a digital collection of exactly what you hear, playing cards. This is the homepage. You arrive here, read a little bit about it, and here's the collection. Okay, so let's start looking at some of these parts that these digital collections, they all have it, okay? One thing that these digital collections have is a search box. There it is. Let me, if I search for the word bubble, these are the two results, right? They all have search boxes. So if I go to JSTOR again, Google Scholar has a search box. If I go to JSTOR again, I will also find a search box. You will always find this in digital environments. These digital collections have a search box. Something else they have is what we call the browsing page. A browsing page is just another way of saying the bibliography. They have this automatic bibliography. We already mentioned that. They also all have what we call the item view. So if I click on one of these ones, let me click on all the bubbles, playing cards. I arrive at the item view. The item view is where you get to see the document. Now, item views often have what is called the viewer area. This is where you get to see what the document is. If it's sound, it's a player, and you get to listen to it. But besides in this item view, besides the actual document itself, you also get the metadata often. Not always, but often you get the metadata. The data about this item that allowed you to discover it in the first place, that allowed us to build these bubbles, etc. It is this extra information that allows us to build this wonderful world of digital collections that you can browse and search, because what you're searching for and browsing is through information housed in this metadata. This is important. So an item view page that has the item itself and metadata. Again, browsing, searching, an item view page, the viewer, metadata. These are common elements in all of these digital collections. Maybe once in a while you'll find an exception in which one of these elements is missing, but for the most part, a digital collection will have all of these things. Now let me stop sharing there for a second, and let me stop for a second to see if anybody, I've been talking for 30 minutes, to see if anybody has any questions before we proceed. We're going to proceed to talk about digital exhibits, which I want to differentiate to make a difference between digital collections and digital exhibits, because we're about to visit some digital exhibits. But before I go there, any questions so far? I started with documents and citations. I said then when we have many documents and many citations combined together, we have a digital collection. And these digital collections have different parts that are common amongst them. Any questions? Salomon, you taking any questions? Or people just
Questions.
they're all just like, wow. It's either really boring or I never thought about it this way.
Nah.
I guess you'll let me know. Let's continue.
Okay, let's continue.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So let's talk about what happens. Can you turn off the mic over there so that I don't have
Would you like to go ahead? There are no questions yet.
Oh, you're gonna ask the questions now.
There are no questions yet.
All right, good. All right, so what happens when you start telling a story with your collection, with your digital collection? This is what we call a digital exhibit. A digital exhibit is a selection of documents. It's a small digital collection in which you are using the collection to tell a story. Now, before I start showing you examples, let me use some definitions that the Haitian anthropologists from Haiti, the island that I come from. I'm originally from the island island of Hispaniola, that has two countries, has Haiti and Dominican Republic. I come from Dominican Republic. Was the neighbor nation, Haiti, is famous around the world for being the first country in the whole world to ban slavery. And also, it was the first country in the whole world in which slaves were able to defeat their masters in war. They were able to win victory against masters. This never happened before in the history of humans, because slaves are poor and the masters are the ones with the guns and all these things. Well, the Haitian Revolution is the first example of a revolution in which the slaves were finally able to defeat their masters in open war. So the first nation to ban slavery for everybody, and the first nation where slaves defeated their masters. Now, I'm telling you this, some of you know this already, but some of you don't. This is a very strange thing that in this world, the French Revolution and the American Revolution are more famous than this revolution. And this revolution was more important in terms of what we understand to be freedom today, the concept of freedom. This revolution was more important than the French and the American. So why this silence? So there was a historian, a Haitian historian, who dedicated his life to understanding why do we have these silences. He wrote an amazing masterpiece, a small book that I recommend everybody in the room read, called "Silencing the Past," about how silences of history are produced. They are things that are made. They're not things that are just like, oh, it just happened that way organically because nature. No. It's just silencing. The things we forget about the past are artificial. There are people who work to make sure we forget certain things, that we don't talk about certain things. Anyways, in this book, he spoke of the 4 places in which we produce silences. They coincide with the 4 places where we also produce the voice, where we also not only produce the silence, but we also produce the documents, where we speak, and the narratives, the stories, the places where we speak, where history speaks and the past speaks, where our ancestors speak in a material culture, in a material reality. Now, these 4 places are, he says, there is the creation, he says, there's the creation of facts. This is what we call documents. There is the creation of archives. This is the collection of documents. There's the creation of narrative. This is the disciplines, the historical disciplines. This is what historians do. This is what writers do, what journalists do. They take the facts housed in the archives, organized in archives. They take the documents organized in archives, and they create stories out of them about the past. And then finally, his final category is what he calls significance. Significance is different than narrative. Significance is importance. Why do things become important? Who makes them important? They are made important based on the activity of the first three, is what he argued. This is a brilliant book. He uses a lot of examples and writes in a very clear way. So very highly recommended. Silence in the Past. The name of the historian is Ralph Michel Trujillo. Now I will write it here in the, for those who are interested, I will write it here in the comment section. And Salomon or Tunde can share later. In any case, so we already saw the first two. We saw documents and we saw the archive in the form of digital collections that organizes today these documents using automatic bibliographies. Okay, so now let's talk about the third category. We'll conclude later with the fourth category, significance. How do we make things important? The third category is, of course, narrative. This is what we do in the disciplines. This is what we do in the English department. This is where we study literature, mostly historical literature, and we tell stories based on the documents of literature that we have available to us. And we do it in the history department, looking at, you know, the ledgers from the cities of the 19th century, this kind of thing. Okay. So what do these things look like in a digital environment? So I'm going to show you some examples. Let's go back to this. So here is one that my students made. Actually, I'll use one in which okay, I found this on the web. Sorry, my phone thinks I'm always talking to my phone. Shut up. All right. This is a collection of manuscripts from the poet that I study. I made this website. In which I have, I have the manuscript pages of these things, and you can see the same thing I told you, right? It has the search, but there's an item view with some metadata and this kind of thing. It's the same thing. It's a digital collection, right? But the difference in this one is that besides the digital collection, I also have a historical essay, and I have, let me see, and I have a codicological essay attached to it that uses multimedia in order to talk about these things. So I'm telling a story. So this is the difference. It's a very simple difference. It's not very complicated to understand. I have a collection, a digital collection, but I also added my own scholarly narrative, my own scholarly analysis to this collection. Now, libraries, they don't do that. Or when they do, it's very brief. It's a very short introduction. So what is happening now is that when scholars and students and the public are starting to do their own digital collections, they're also adding more elaborate narratives to these digital collections. So they're contextualizing, they're creating a context for these digital collections. They're interpreting them for everybody, for the public, in ways that were not being done before. Because libraries, they always try to stay neutral. They always try to say, no, we just provide the documents, we do the metadata, and they create these large digital collections because they have more staff who is dedicated to doing this work. Every day they do this work. And but what they don't have that much is staff dedicated to interpreting because the way that the university is organized, based on the European model of the 19th century, even in our countries, because we were colonized by the Europeans, and the universities still have a lot of that organization that comes from the 19th century. The library is separate from the departments, so that the people in charge who get paid to do the interpretation, they are separate from the people who are in charge of creating the facts and the archives, of organizing the facts. And therefore, we ended up with these collections that don't have narrative. But because of the digital, how easy it has become to do these digital collections and add stories to them, now we're starting to see a change. I don't know what's going to happen in 100 years from now with the labor relationships and how we organize ourselves in the university of the future. But I do know that right now, everybody is creating these digital collections, and they are creating them slightly different ways. When a scholar creates them, they add narrative to it. So let me show you another example, because there's many examples. This one is one that is based on, this is by some friends who did an amazing, incredible job. But it also uses the tool that I'm going to be showing you today. This is the Color Conventions Project, which is a project that does this digital collection and exhibits about the African Americans in the 19th century. Before and after the Civil War, they had these conventions where they were allowed to meet and discuss their political plans and their problems that affected their community, etc. Now, what they do here is that originally they were combined. So they have their exhibits are now separate than their digital collection. Originally it was the same, but they changed recently. But they separated the narratives from the collections. One of the reasons I wanted to show you this is because, let me, grab. Hold on a second. It's because we're going to be using the tool that they used for the digital collection. We're going to be using that it's the tool that I'm going to show you, because it's free to use and it's not very hard to learn how to use it. But anyways, this is the collection part, right? They have all the digital records. So they have a browsing page, like I told you, you can browse. In this case, you can browse by the years, the time, right? And when you get to an item, you have the item view. So that's the document itself. This is, sorry, I skipped the item view. This is the item view, right? So there's the metadata for the item, same things, right? But they also have exhibits. So they have the stories that they tell as scholars about these conventions. So, for example, this one is about women and economic power in the 19th century. And it's an interactive story that because it's digital, you can make it with all kinds of multimedia and linking. This one has a map. All right, so this project allows me to demonstrate something about digital exhibits, something very useful, which is that besides the digital collections, we can now tell stories, but also not only stories in the form of prose, not only in the form of essays, but now, because it's digital environments, we can tell stories using other media, like interactive maps, or what we call visualizations, which don't have a geographical component, but have a lot of graphics that you can interact with. We can now tell stories using video, sound, etc. All of these things are possible within digital environments and made easier for the average academic. I'm not saying easy because you remember Paige Morgan last year, right? She would tell them, never say easy, because none of these things they require you to learn. It's not like oh yeah, this magic like WhatsApp, which even WhatsApp people still like use it really bad. Like, you know, all the people sending me prayer emojis because that's the only thing they know how to send, or these memes. You know, even WhatsApp can be used bad. So no, not easy, but easier than a lot of things than it used to be before. Definitely, you needed to be rich in order to be able to do these things before. Now all you have to do is spend time learning. So to summarize, before we go into the tool on how to do these things, a digital exhibit is a digital collection with narrative. It is an interpretative layer. It is where the scholar tells the story about why is this digital collection important? What are the items here you should be looking at? And those stories can be told not only through essays, but they can be told with using more interactive media that we're familiar with now because of the internet. So you can use maps, video, sound, etc. So imagine imagine someone writing an essay before the internet, and they were able to put the archive on top of the essay, right? Imagine an essay being published in 1950, and they would actually be able to include the archive in the essay. Well, this is what these digital exhibits and collections allow us to do. You have your, you can have an essay and have the collection right there. Sometimes books in the past used to have this really expensive part in the back where they have a facsimile of the original, but they were very expensive, and only the most famous professors the publisher would only do this with the most famous professors, right? But now it is accessible to most of us. We can have that. We can have our interpretation together with copies or originals of the archive we are talking about. So that means that the first three levels of Trujillo's creation of significance are accessible to us. The creation, documents, archives, and narrative, all in digital environment. So I see a question. I'll stop there for a question. It's 10:52, so we're about to take a break. But before we take a break, let's see if anybody has a question. I saw one. It says, "Can Professor Gil? I'm not a professor. I'm a librarian. Can Alex comment be put in the feeds across platforms so that way people?" Oh, I see. It's Titi Lola. Oh. Hey, Titi. Titi Lola and me worked. Like I met Titi Lola like 10 years ago where we did around the digital humanities in 80 days. Do you remember that? That was funny. Let me make sure Ralph Michel is spelled right. Hold on a second. Oh, no, it's kind of spelled right, but it's in reverse. It's Michel Rolf, not Ralph Michel. Michel Rolf Trujillo. All right, there. No questions. There it is. Thank you. That's really fancy.
Yeah.
There are no questions? Okay, if there are no questions,
Okay.
let's take a little 5-minute
Yes.
break so that I can use the restroom.
Hold on.
There's one question.
There's
Okay.
a question.
Okay. Thank you so much, Alex. That was a wonderful presentation. I am John Adebayo from Chrisland University here in Nigeria. I am one of the librarians you asked about before your presentation the other time. So I just want to ask you, for knowledge sake, most of the examples you gave us today actually came from digitizing text, especially. But we have people here as well that may really want to go into, digitization of indigenous materials, indigenous horror archives, and the likes. Is it the same process we follow? Can you shed more light in that regard too? Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know if you
Thank
get
you
my
for
question.
that wonderful question. That is a very important question. Now, I mentioned it very briefly, so maybe it needs a little bit more attention. But everything that I'm doing with the digitization of, that I'm saying in terms of digitization of manuscripts can be also about digitization of sound or digitization of images or digitization of video. Time-based media is the technical term we use that. But so let me show you an example of a project that I worked in oral history very recently. This is an example. This is a project. We're still working on it. It is a project where we interviewed the nurses, a lot of nurses in Sierra Leone and Liberia that were active during the Ebola crisis. Where is my, here it is. And what we want to do is we are now also interviewing a lot of nurses during the COVID crisis. So what we're going to do is we're going to compare their stories from the Ebola crisis. We're trying we did this project because these oral histories because we wanted to convince the World Health Organization and other governments around the world that they should have nurses to be at the table of making policy decisions because they understand pandemics. I'm not saying better, they understand different side of the pandemic than the doctors or the public health officials. So we wanted to demonstrate that because by listening to the testimony of the nurses, you can see that they understand how communities on the ground behave and understand how to get the things that those communities need better than doctors and better than public health officials because they're on the ground. They're working with the people, right? So in order to do that, we interviewed many of them. So this is the project. It's called Frontline Nurses. We're doing the same for COVID, but I'm just going to focus on the Ebola nurses. So this is, of course, it's a digital collection and exhibit. The digital collection is a collection of the oral histories. The exhibit part, there is a timeline. I'm going to open it on another tab, and there's a historical essay of the Ebola crisis. I'll show you those in a second because it has the same parts as that I already talked about, right? So here are the oral histories. It has a browsing page. And the browsing page in this case is you can browse by different nurse. So if you hover on the image, you can see the nurse, right? I'm not going to click yet because I want to show you they also does an automatic bibliography by country, for example. If I hit on Sierra Leone, I need to fix that button. It's not working. There it is. Yes, sorry, I was clicking on the wrong thing. If I hit on Sierra Leone, then I get only the nurses for Sierra Leone. So I generated the bibliography automatically. I'm going to go ahead and click on Dolphine Burga, all right, from Sierra Leone, right? So, nice t-shirt there in New York. That's where I live. Here is the oral history. Here is the sound.
I remember when you were young, I grew up in the village. My family was poor.
You can also have the transcription, so you can also.
Childhood illnesses.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So most of the time, my mother.
It's kind of broken right now. I don't know why. I will investigate after this. But it's the same thing. look, this has metadata. The item page has this original document, which is the interview. It has two versions of the document. One is the transcription of the document, and it has data about it. It is the same concept. It is a digital collection. Now, it also is a digital exhibit. It has different things besides the collection. For example, it has, this is something that's going terribly wrong. Maybe it's the internet connection. Here's the history essay. It has a narrative. Again, so same concept, but this time done with sound. So for those people interested in doing these kinds of things with sound and not with digitized images of manuscripts or text, this is more or less the same thing. Except, of course, you have to record the sound and do all these things specific to sound. But at the end of the day, you're going to end up with a collection of documents that you're going to present in a viewer, in this case, an audio player, that is going to have metadata that you're going to search. There's no need to create a separate category for this. It's the same complex system. It's the same system. Does that answer your question?
Of time, let's just take one more question and call it a day because we are running behind schedule.
Okay.
Lisa is waiting for our presentation, so let's just take one more question.
Oh, I thought it was 2 hours. Hi, Lisa.
Alex is really 45 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Alex, for that inspiring presentation. I would like to know if you have data, images like adverts, maybe, static images now on billboards, and you want to document them, you want to digitize them. How do you go about doing that?
If you have big material,
yeah, static images on billboards. Okay.
What's a beatbot? What's a beatbot?
Okay.
What is a beatbot?
The beatbots, for instance, on political campaigns.
But I don't know what a beatbot.
Outdoor campaigns.
Can you write it? What is a beatbot? I just don't know that word.
Hello, Alex.
Hey. Yeah.
We are talking of outdoor adverts.
Advertisement.
Oh.
Advertisements.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Like the big signs.
Yes.
That have the name of the face of the
signpost. A signpost with adverts.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. For instance, you want to do a kind of documentation for maybe the past 4 elections that we've had in Nigeria, and those things are static images. How do you go about digital?
With a phone. You point, and you press the camera, take a picture, make sure the picture's nice, and then you have to add metadata to it. So this process of digitization is a process of photography. For static, anything that can be captured, all of these things are photos. They're just photographs. Except for sound, everything is a photo. So you take a photo with your camera or you take a photo with a scanner. When it's objects in the 3-dimensional space, well, everything's 3-dimensional space. But when it's like you're on the road and it's the streets, it has to be a camera because there's no scanner that is that big to take a picture of. Like that would be ridiculous to create a scanner to take this sign. So we take photographs with a digital camera. Everything is photographs. So everything that's an image is a photograph, and that's it. You create a collection of the photographs. So you're going to organize all your photographs. This is how we document this kind of lived environment. Anyways, I'm sorry. I thought this was longer than, but I sent the link to the software that you can use to create your own collections. It's called omeka.net. It's free. There's a paid version of this, but the free version is good. And you can use, it's not hard to learn. There are a lot of YouTube videos on how to learn how to do this. And I'm sure people on the ground there have some familiarity with Omeka. It's a great way for those of you who do historical and documentary work to start learning about how to create your own digital collections. So Lisa, I'm sorry I'm taking from your time. You go ahead and take it away, Lisa.
Sure. I don't know if is there going to be a tea break over there? Or should I start?
Thank you, Alex. A round of applause for Alex. Yeah.
Bye, Sama.
So
You're in
we'll
good
move
hands.
on.
Sama. You're in good hands.
Yeah, thanks. Even though we miss your not coming over.
Excellent.
We'll move on to collaborative text analysis and visualization with Python. Facilitator is Dr. Lisa Tagliaferri, Director of Developer Education at SourceGraph, New York, USA. Welcome. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So we are all ears. Thank you.
Okay. So I don't know if everybody was here yesterday. We're gonna try to do a new version of what I was doing yesterday. If I type in here, I'm not sure if everybody will see it, but I want, for those of you who have a computer or who can look on with somebody else, if you could go to this jupiter.org link. So Project Jupiter is a tool that is used for collaborative sharing of code. It's being more widely used in science to replicate research, to replicate code. So we're going to try working with this today. One thing that might happen is if everybody logs in at once, we might get a little slowed down. But you could either try Classic Notebook or try Jupyter Lab. So we're going to be working with Python, and either of them will work. So if we get throttled, you could try the other one. Another option, if you're having trouble getting on here, is to use Google Colab. Google Colab is something, if you have a Google account, it's this link here. And I will share this. It's if you go to colab.research.google.com, it will pull up, and then this is the alternate option if you're having trouble connecting to Jupyter Lab. I think Jupyter Lab is a little bit easier, but I'll try to demo a bit for both. So if you're in Jupyter Lab now, we could go into the Python 3 notebook. And we're just going to go through some syntax in Python. Again, when you're starting programming, the first thing you usually do is the hello world program. In Python, it is a print statement with hello world in quotation marks. When you're running something like this Jupyter notebook, you could, there's a few shortcuts, but you could always press this play button. So you could do either Control or Alt with Enter will also roll that down. And if you're in this, if you're instead in the Google Collaboratory, we'll do the same thing. And then you could press this play button. So with these statements, the hello world here is a string, and the string could be done with a double quotation or a single quotation. Python doesn't care. String is just a data type in programming that is used for text of any kind. If you're working with numbers, then you're not going to use a quotation. You're just going to put the number in. So another thing that is useful with Python is that we could use variables. So it looks kind of like math, like algebra. We could say that that x, this kind of empty bucket, is equal to 2. For this one, it's alt to run to the next one, and we could do it in either of these. So with x equals 2, now x will always be equal to until we reassign it to something else. So we could do a print statement with x, and it will print 2 because we assigned the number 2 to x. We could do multiplication. Well, we're doing the print statement so that we see that it's actually working. So in programming, we have the same kind of, we have a lot of similar operands. So there's the plus would be addition, minus is subtraction, the asterisk is multiplication, and this slash is division. Some other things that Python does, so there's the equal sign, which assigns it, but we could also test equivalency. So x is x equal to x? This is what the equals sign means in Python. Is it equivalent? And we get this statement back that it's true because it's the same thing. If we wanted to evaluate whether x is equals to 2, it's also true. We could also evaluate across greater than or less than. So if we want to see if x is greater than 6, we see that it's not, because as we assigned above, x is equal to 2, 2 is not greater than 6. So we get false. If instead we did it the other way, is x less than 6, we would expect to get true returned instead. So this is just to give you like the general overview of what we can do with Python, right? Python can be used as a calculator, but this is helpful for when we start to kind of pull things together and do statistical analysis with text. So we can assign this variable book to a book title. We'll do La Petite Poule here. So now we will, just like this x equals 2, this book is going to be equal to this string. So here the x is equal to a number, an integer. Here the book, this kind of empty bucket of something that you could put into, is now equal to the title string La Petite Poule. If you're in this one instead, it's exactly the same. So then if you print book, you'll get this feedback that the book is equal to La Petite Poule, the title of that book. And as you see, when we're programming it, we use these quotations so that Python knows that it's a string. But when we get this output back, it's not in those quotations anymore. So with these variables, we could assign like kind of abstract thinking to them. So say I have 100 books behind me, we could assign it to this number of books variable, and we could do some math with that. Oops. So if we wanted to say that I have 100 books and I got a new book from the library, we would do number of books equals number of books plus 1. So then what is our new number of books? Now it's going to be updated, and now we have 101. There's a faster way to do this. If we do number of books plus equals to this kind of format, will increase it without having to declare it again. So we could write this the same way as this with the 5 instead, and it would perform the same. But here, this is a shorter way of saying that we want to increment the number of books. So say we had 100 books, we got 1 book from the library, and now we got 5 more books from the library. So now that will be updated. So now we have 106 books total. And again, it would be the same. It would be the same here. Here, let's say instead of doing the same exact thing, we'll say plus equals 6, and we'll get the same. So here, just a shortcut to get, say we took 5 books or 6 books out from the library, then we print the number of books and then it's updated. So then whenever we're calling this again, so even though we initialized it as 100, since we're going forward and doing some math on it, this variable, this like bucket of number of books is going to be updated as we go along. And again, with Python, we could take in some user input. So we could say we want the user to enter their name. They're using our website. Say we're making a tool like Goodreads, and we want to have everybody's username, and we want to know how many books they're reading. So we have this username bucket so that we could always work with that username regardless of who it is. So it'll be discrete to everybody's individual account. We say we want you, when you sign up for our site, we want you to enter your name so that we could work with your name and keep all of your information together. So then we could start to use that username in our website, and we'll use this kind of the same kind of idea as with this, this kind of math stuff. We could do that with strings as well. With strings, it's called concatenation because we're just adding the strings together. So here we'll say Lisa is reading, so something like a status update. If we want to add that the user is reading something in particular, we could pull down that same symbol from before this book that we initialized as La Petite Pule. We could say that Lisa is reading this book. So even though I programmed this website that's for everyone and everybody has a different name, everybody's using a different book, we're using the same logic, and we'll be able to display this specifically for each person. I mean, this is not a robust program, but this is to give you the idea of how you would start to use this, how you could use this symbolism to represent other things and have it be specific to your user. So yesterday we were working with a specific text file. I have it here, but you could go and get whatever text file you want. It doesn't have to be this. I could show you where that is on that GitHub repo from yesterday. But basically, we just want to add any text file. So what you could do is you could go to Project Gutenberg and find a text file. Project Gutenberg, if you're not familiar with it, has a lot of free ebooks that are, most of them are out of copyright of some kind. You could find whatever book you're interested in here. Let's say this one. And then you could get the plain text file. So I don't know if you'll be able to see me downloading it, but once you get to wherever you want to be, you could go to save page as, and then I don't think you could see that I'm doing it, but you could do save page as, and just make sure you download it as a .txt. And then once you have it, you'll be able to, let's see, you'll be able to add it. So you could actually drag it in if you're using this version. If we're using the collaboratory, it's going to be a little bit different, and I'll show you in a minute. But this is the one that I just downloaded, this 65320. The GitHub repo that I had, I can show you how to get that text file. So this is the repo. I'm not sure if you have access to the chats, but it's github.com, Taliaferri, lssdh-python-git, and then it's in this lssdh directory, and then it's in text, and then you could access it, go to the raw file, and then you would be able to also download it. So save page as, and just make sure you save it as a .txt file. So then this is in here. We also have that other book I downloaded from Gutenberg is here. So any book you want to use, it doesn't matter. If we're working in here, it's a little bit different. So we would have to go to our drive, and then actually do it from my personal account. So you would have to go to your Google Drive, and then you'd have to add, the file to here. So I already added it, but it would just go into here. And then what you would need to do, let's see, there is, here, it's actually Stack Overflow helps us here. So in here, we would have to add that file. Well, we would have to connect our drive. So it's a little trickier. And then once you load this, so from google.collab import drive.mount, parentheses, quote, content drive, you should get this coming up, and then you would have to allow it. And then there's this string that you would hook into it. So at that point, we could use this with open syntax. So here you would have to make sure that you're using the name of that file. In my case, it's called this, and it's just right in my drive folder. So then, oh, I'm not having it do what I want it to do. Here, we want this one. I have to redo it. Well, anyway, I think I messed it up, but let's go back to here. So here, we'll use the same syntax in Google Drive in a minute. So here it's just right in the main directory. So this open with the parentheses is a function that's part of Python file input output. It allows Python to work with your system files. In this case, Jupyter Lab is in a server cloud instance, but it's the same kind of idea as if you were working on your local machine. You would have files in your directories, and you would be able to use Python to pick up those files. So we just are asking now Python to open up this file, and now we'll ask Python to print this file. So here's Python printing out this whole big file, which we don't necessarily need, but just so you see that it's actually working. And then here, let's just delete this. So here we just need to make sure that we have this correct file path, because this is the Google file path, the Google Drive. And then oops, don't need this. I don't know why it's saying this. I must have rewritten it. Let me put it in again. Okay. I'm going to change the name of it. I'm sorry about that. I put in something that rewrote the file. But here, so if we do it this way, so Wheatley equals open, and we definitely know what's in that file, and then we print it, then the Google Collaboratory will also do the same thing and show us this file. Okay. So now that we have this file loaded in, we know what this file is. You might be using your own separate file. What we're going to do is do some statistical analysis of the text. And I think it might help if I show you some of some of what I've done in the past so you could kind of understand like what is the point of this and how might this help me as a digital humanities scholar. So this is some of the work that I did when I was a postdoc at MIT. We were in the digital humanities lab, and we worked on a corpus of 19th century English language novels, and we took them down from Project Gutenberg, and we did statistical analysis of the text. So this is the website as it is today. Let me see if I can find our projects. Although maybe it's not as easy as it used to be. Okay, so this is the project, Gender Novels. So this is the landing page, and I'll send you the link too. It's gendernovels.digitalhumanities.mit.org. But we use Python to kind of understand how these texts were dealing with gender. So we found that the words that were associated with female characters were, words like beautiful, pretty, sweet, lady, lovely. The words that were associated with male characters were more generic, less subjective, I guess. Old, good, last, great, first. This is the code of this if you're interested in like looking through this once you get like a stronger grasp on Python. We learned that masculine pronouns were more common even like throughout this huge corpus of text than feminine pronouns. If the author was a woman, then it was more likely that they would have feminine characters in their texts. We also were able to track across time. So we did some time analysis. But, you could dig into this more. But this is just like an idea of what you can potentially achieve with Python. Like we were able to determine whether the female characters were the subject or the object of a sentence, whether the male was the subject or object. Like we see that overwhelmingly the male characters were subjects and female characters were more likely to be the object of the sentence. So like, things being done to them versus them doing things. We did some instance distance. How often, like how far away feminine characters were from each other in a text, and how far away masculine characters were from each other in a text. There was grammar analysis, so some kind of pathways of the grammar. We did Dunning scores, which you could read about also. So how often, or what are the distinctive words? Like female authors were more likely to use the word little overwhelmingly. Male authors more likely to use the word major. And you could also kind of understand like what are we working with? Like most of the texts were from the United States and United Kingdom. We were working with English language texts. What was the publication year? Like we had a lot more from the late 19th, early 20th century. Who were the authors and things like that. So this is just to kind of ground what we're talking about. Like why do I care about Python? Like what can I do with Python? And this whole project, the Gender Novels project, is all open source, so you could inspect the code and look and see how it was done, so that you could try to get your get a handle on it and see what we're using. So we're going to need to do some of these importing ourselves here. So, oh gosh, with Python, there's different packages that you can use. Like, you don't have to start everything completely from scratch. So we're going to import some packages that already exist. These are done to do this statistical analysis. Like, people already solve some of these problems. We don't have to start from the beginning. We could leverage these packages. Let me just type this out. So this, oh, I need to install these, I guess. All right. Yeah, since this is not totally set up, if you get any of these errors while you're going through it, you're going to have to do what we call a pip install. Pip is the Python package manager. So we're just telling the Python package manager to install this NLTK. NLTK is Natural Language Toolkit. It allows us to do linguistic analysis of text. It already has programmed into it some features of grammar, some, how to tokenize text, how to see like where words are, where, like, what is a distinct word. So you don't have to kind of program like where are the spaces and where are the words. So let's see if this will work now. Okay. Nope. Okay, I'm not sure why we're getting this error. Well, let's see if how it goes. So now we have these set up. So we're going to want to collect all of the words that are in your text file. So whatever text file you're using, we're going to collect every word that's in there. The other thing that we want to do is not collect the stop words. The stop words are words that are very common in English or whatever language you're using. NLTK has support for a lot of languages. I don't know if it has support for every human language, but I've used this with Italian, for example. So you could, if you have an Italian or French text, you could change this to be Italian, French, whatever. And then we want to initialize for additional stop words, because there's going to be some words that are common to this text that are not very explicative. So for older written text in English, like thy, thou, thine, might not be in this official stop words list because it's more contemporary language. So we just want to initialize a bucket for those. Cool. So the stop words, again, are just words that we don't want Python to count because they're a very common word, and it will change the way we're thinking about it. Okay, so this is just saying we want all of these to not be counted. That's what this is saying. Like, this is what we're going to be using. So we're going to open up this Phyllis Wheatley text in my case, but it could be whatever text you have, this text you have on the side. If you're in the collaboratory instead, it would have to be, it could be written like this instead. And again, this is the Stack Overflow here, which I think I tried to send to you. Okay, so we're just making a loop through the text. A loop is a way that we could do things programmatically so that we don't have to tell Python to, we don't have to tell Python to keep doing this, to do it, and then we have to tell Python again, tell Python again, tell Python again. We could just say Python, like, as long as this text still has text in it, like, let's read those lines. Let's see. Let me go back to where we are. I'll link this to you so you maybe don't have to type the whole thing. So I have these. We're doing the word frequency. Oh gosh, I didn't commit it. I will commit this. Okay. So if you're able to access this, it's github.com/ltaliaferry lssdh-python-git. And it's from the main directory here. You could go to lssdh, and then I just added these two programs. They're next to the full programs. This way you could copy this, and these are not totally finished, but just so you could copy and paste it so you don't have to go and type everything out. But basically, like, to walk you through as we're doing this, it's what we're trying to do is get Python to read this file to us, and then we want to loop through the file so that we add the words in the file to basically Python's memory. And then we will have Python evaluate whether those words are in the stop words that we have. And then we want Python to visualize this for us. Oops, I need two parentheses here. Okay, so this, again, this is collecting all of the words. We just need to initialize the text, like, where are we putting all the words? We're putting all the words of the text into this all words variable bucket. These are the stop words, the words that we don't want counted. I didn't add any here, but here I added a few. And they would just live in here. So we could put like die, for example. This is just combining all of this to make sure that these are counted. Then we're opening up this text that we have over here. We're telling Python that we want all the lines read. Then this book lines here is being used over here. So for each of those lines in those lines of the book, so here, like this is a line, this is a line. So for each of those, we want to break up the words. And this is from the NLTK toolkit. So we want each of these words to be counted individually. And then we want all of those words to be lowercase so that we're not counting like muses. Muses is uppercase here. Maybe Wheatley uses muses as a lowercase word later, but we want to know how many times she's using muses, period. So we want everything to be lowercase. Then as long as that word is not one of these stop words, so like what is a stop word? The is a stop word. As long as it's not one of those words, then we don't want that counted. So as long as that's not one of those words, we want the words to be appended to this all words bucket. So that's what this is doing at the high level. If it doesn't totally make sense to you right now, like don't worry, like it will come with time as you experiment with it yourself. But then we are going to create this frequency distribution plot, and I am not sure if this is going to work because I don't know if everything is loaded in, but we'll see. With open. Oh, there needs to be a colon. There needs to be as input, sorry. Let's see. Stop words not found. Okay, we need to install. Okay. All right, so all I'm doing now is seeing what these errors are. So even though we initialized this and we didn't, I mean, this NumPy error is not right. Like not everything is loaded in. When you're working with your local machine, you will be able to have everything loaded in that you need. And all I'm doing is looking at the log feedback to figure out these errors. So the error was with this tokenize, and it actually gives me like the information I need to fix it. So I need to call this NLTK download and then load that in. So let's try it again. There we go. So just to show you how I recovered everything, I needed to do this NLTK.download parentheses quotes punkt, P-U-N-K-T. And then we also need to download the stop words with this. This is just telling, so we have the NLTK downloaded, which we did with this pip install NLTK, but it didn't download all these different libraries because it's a pretty big package. So we just looked at the logging, saw what we need to do to make sure those are there. Now everything is loaded in, and now we're able to get this this distribution chart. And here is where you would see like, oh, there's lots of garbage that is still being counted that we don't need. Like we don't need these like exclamation points. We don't need these question marks. So what we would do is we would start adding those in here so that those are not counted. Because what's happening is like with these old texts, they're often not very clean. So it's just a matter of going through and trying to see what's there, like trying to get familiarity with the text. You know, you have to use your own judgment about what should be counted and what should not be counted here. And, you know, I didn't take everything out, but you get an idea that like now these thou, thine, thus are not there. So after time, we'll see like the ones that are more common will rise and scooch over. If we wanted to try this text instead, we could try to do that. I don't know anything about this text, but we could see if we could just get it to do the similar thing. Yeah, so this text is quite different. There's also kind of weird things that we don't really want, like a period and a hyphen maybe. A colon, a semicolon. Oh, there's still some garbage, and there's these like these square brackets, but you get an idea that this bankichi is maybe an important word. Said, maybe we don't want that. Master, project, boy, man. So it's a very different text than the Wheatley text. Cool. So this is the first, this is the frequency distribution chart. So it just tells us like what are the most important words and how often are they here. So this word is maybe, I mean, we would maybe want to change the figure size, which we could do. Here, we could change the size of it. Maybe we can make it bigger. Yeah, so this, maybe it's around 200 or 175 words, but these are things that you can modify here. We maybe want to do fewer. Right, so if we want to do only 20 words, I mean, these are not really words, but we would fix that over time. We could change that number. We could change the size of the figure here with these numbers, the 16 referring to horizontal and the 10 referring to up and down. Cool, and I'll show you the word count really quickly. And I'll just copy and paste this here, although I think we'll need to import word cloud. So we could do that with pip install word cloud. Okay. And then we could copy and paste this. We just need to, so that one is a different, system structure. So just make sure that, or whatever text you're using, make sure that it's in the right directory. So for this, in this case, it's this one over here. Let's see if this will run. Okay, so this ran for us with the pip install word cloud because we had the matplotlib and NLTK and the stop words set up. Again, if you don't have those set up, it would be pip install NLTK if you're getting an error with that. And this NLTK dot download parentheses quote stop words quote close parentheses would make sure you have those stop words set up. If you're getting an error, you could delete these lines. You could delete these, or I guess all of these lines, and then you could also delete this line, and then you won't have to worry about stop words and the stop words line up here. But basically what this is doing, it's very similar. It's opening this Phyllis Wheatley text and telling Python to read it and to store it in this text bucket. It's taking in these stop words, the English stop words, and it's adding additional stop words so that all of those stop words are not counted. And then it's just using the word cloud package, these attributes, to generate a word cloud. So in this case, you could play with these parameters, right? You could say you don't want a white, you want a black, you want maybe you want fewer words. The font size you could play with here. But those are things you could play with. But basically, we're just generating the word cloud from this text. So it's reading that text in, and then it's showing us this figure. The plots, this plot PLT is from the matplotlib, which word cloud is using. If we want to try that other text that we don't know anything about, we could do that too. Okay, so this text is not cleaned up, right? So it says the Project Gutenberg, so we don't want that there. The other text I had cleaned up a little bit before. Okay, so this is a little bit better. Maybe depending on what we know about this text, maybe sed is important and maybe it's not, but we would have to use our judgment there. Probably we don't want the word ebook in there because that's probably not actually in the text. Maybe footnote we don't want, maybe we don't want yes, but we would keep working with that. But I think, you know, Python is not going to come to you like overnight in one workshop. I have there's a lot of resources available, and I have done some Python learning resources that I could share with you that are free. So this tool is totally free, and I think there is a short link. Let's see. Yeah, so the short link is this do.co-python book. This is a totally free book that you could download as an EPUB or a PDF, and it will talk you through all of this with much more depth. And also, you don't have to download the book. You could read the whole book on your web browser, and it will talk you through how to set up your programming environment. It will talk you through how to test your code and everything like that. There's also a number of programming projects that you could follow if you're interested in taking down data from the web. There's resources for that. This is not the one I want. So this will teach you how to go through, like, say you're working on an art history project and you need to pull down data and there's not like a database that's available. This will talk you through how you can create your own database, basically, and then you could do work with it. You don't have to use my resources. There's lots of Python resources. There's realpython.com, which has a lot of Python tutorials written by lots of Python developers. Another tool that is useful is Programming Historian, which has definitely like a digital humanities flavor. So not as computer science focused, but much more humanities focused. And they have it in a few different languages as well. And they have a number of tools in Python and also about Git. Let's see. So here you could see they have 20 Python tutorials. So what we were using today, the Jupyter notebook, they have an introduction there. So if you want to go through this again, use those GitHub files, then you could do that here. There's, this installing Python modules with pip. This counting word frequencies would be, I haven't gone through it, but I think it would be similar to what we were talking about today. And it might give you like a little more of the, like what's happening under the hood before you do those visualizations. Awesome. I think we'll stop here, but I'm happy to answer questions. And if I think of more resources, I think that this will kind of get you going. But there's definitely more resources. So definitely search for Python resources, search for statistical analysis in Python, and feel free to look through those open source repositories that already are doing some of the work. So you could pull some of that down.
Thank you, Lisa, for your presentation.
Thank you.
We want to know whether some people... Okay, can we please give a round of applause again? And now we want to take questions. How will you want your question? You want every of the question to be asked first, and you make your response after? Or that we take it one after the other?
Whatever is easier for you. Whatever is easier for you.
Okay. So, questions? Okay. Someone asked you to repost those sites that you were posting earlier. So, scroll them on the screen for us. Thanks for that. Any other question? Okay. What?
Okay, hello, Lisa. Thank you so much for that wonderful session. Although it will be difficult for some of us to understand the syntax of Python from the overview. Okay. My question is this: I'm much more interested in web scraping, and I know you can use Beautiful Soup, Request, Selenium, and the rest of them. So what would you recommend? Because there are times I try to scrape some data online, and I get having some error messages from certain websites using Beautiful Soup. So, and although I'm working on using Request now and Celeron, but can you just briefly explain those concepts? Which do you think is more effective when scraping data online? Is it Beautiful Soup? Is it Scrappy? Or Celeron? Which of them? So that's just my question. Thank you.
Sure. I think both are fine. I think that requests may be where you're coming into an error, because Beautiful Soup should be kind of cleaning up the text, and Request is the tool that you use to Request is a tool that you'll use to pull things down. So Beautiful Soup with Request is an effective match. I think Scrapey also works well. I usually have used Request in Beautiful Soup. If you send me an email with your error message, I could try to help you more. The organizers here should have my email address that they could share with you.
Okay. Another question. Okay.
Thank you very much, Lisa, for that presentation, and I appreciate the ease with which you dealt with Python. Olushola Aina is my name, from Crawford University, Ogun State, Nigeria. I would like to know, because from comparing Python and other digital tools, I discovered that Python has to do with coding, most especially. And I want to know, because looking at the other tools, I discovered that I could just send my text into the program and get the response. But with this, I have to do some coding. Now, if I have tables to deal with, how do I code the content and the table? That's number one. My question is 2 in 1, actually. Then the other part is there any way we can have Python simplified in a way that people like us can relate with it very well? Because as much as I tried to concentrate and understand Python, I still find it a bit difficult to relate with. Is there any way you can make it simpler, or probably do something on ABC of Python for people to relate with very well? Thank you.
I think that's a really good question, and I think Python is just one tool among many different tools. I think Lauren Tilton is speaking later today about R, and R is also a good programming language that you could use to look at text as well. And it might be, like, depending on your experience, it might be a simpler tool. It's less of a robust programming language. So Python has a lot of capacity to do lots of things. Like you could use it to build websites with Django and Flask, for example. So it's a different kind of tool than R, and R is much more of a statistical analysis tool. So depending on what you're trying to achieve, like, you should choose the tool that works for you. There are tools that will let you just input, like there's Gephi is one. Let me find it. There's Gephi, which will let you do similar things, that has a user interface versus kind of coding things out. The reason why I have liked Python is, where did this file go? The reason why I liked Python was because it does have a lot of capacity to do lots of different things. But if that's not the right use case for you, then like absolutely you should like evaluate. This is just like for your information, and if it resonates with you, then great, and if it doesn't, then there's lots of other tools available. In terms of tables, Python is very good with handling tables. It's a much faster and stronger tool than Excel or other kinds of spreadsheets are, for example. The packages that you would be interested in for dealing with tables is pandas is what it's called. And that will help you use big tables of text. And I did there is a tutorial that I have available on pandas that looks at, let's see if it's, well, there's a few tutorials, I guess. This one is a data visualization one, I think. So this is, let's see if I could send that to you. This is data analysis and visualization with pandas and Jupyter Notebook in Python. And this uses the United States Social Security Administration's data about baby names. So it's a huge data set because it has the files from 1881 to 2015. And this tutorial will take you through how to map like the popularity of names in the United States over time. This is just like kind of the sample text, like the sample data type that I use, but there's lots of data sets that are available. You might be making your own data sets. Maybe you're collecting it with requests and Beautiful Soup from the web. But there's definitely, like, Python is very fast and very capable at handling a lot of data. So that's one of the benefits of it.
Thank you for the answers to those questions. Do we have any other question? Okay, let's appreciate her once again. Thanks for your time. And we're happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. And yeah, feel free to share my email with the folks there.
We say thanks for your time. God bless you. Can we please give a round of applause again? What's the next? From the program sheet, we have the next lecture to take place around 5:45 through to 6:30. So we want to use this period again to meet at our various groups and finalize what we are discussing earlier. And some of us can also use the opportunity to visit the restroom and do what we can do before she come up.
Please, the information on the participant WhatsApp group, the one that we call the important information. that is, I'm trying to, I'm trying to go through it. For those who don't have access to it yet, maybe because of data or something. No, it's not. That's how we're written. Okay, I can see it now. Sorry, I'm seeing something else. But I've been removed from the group. Okay, so for the session tomorrow by Dan O'Donnell and Obin Aid, there is a piece of information for everyone here. For the session, creating and sustaining funded digital humanities projects that will come up tomorrow evening by 18 o'clock. The convener will ask you to think through project ideas for interactive part of the event. These project ideas can be at different stages, from loose ideas to clearly defined projects. And then they said that they will welcome short project idea titles or descriptions to be sent to them before the session starts. So we want to ask everyone to, I'm going to create a link now. Then I'll share it with us. So we drop our project ideas there. No, just log in and individual project, I think. So you just drop your project idea. It could be some of those things you have suggested, those proposals. Just give the titles alone, but you should have an idea of what it's going to be. Felix, not here. Okay, so let's have that in mind. Quickly, I will create. Or can you drop your project idea here on the participant page? Just put your name. So, is someone going to steal it? Okay, if you send to me, that's a lot of work too. A link. Okay, I'll create that link in the next 10 minutes, 5 minutes. All right. So you can interact now, and then while we are waiting for the next presenter. Thank you.
Shame the way Akinyele wants to marry wife. He don't want to pay some bride price. You better find it. Akinyele omojinadu. He don't want to pay some bride price. You better find it. Akinyele, 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 Akinyele. Oh, to me, you Romeo. Oh, Bami Dele, Bami. Say, be the same thing, lots of Milano. But today, what tell me, Mole? Lawyer, Alakiti, first class liar. Alakari, someone, but don't job. Ìyá mi lọ́bí mi, bàbá mi ló tọ́ mi. Mo kì í ṣọmọ rẹ́gísítírì, alákọ̀wé lọ́yà. Akínyẹlé o, Akínyẹlé o, Akínyẹlé, Akínyẹlé, Akínyẹlé o, Akínyẹlé o, Akínyẹlé. Lawyer, Alakidi, first class liar, Alakari, Sanwo. Come on, Momo, come on, Joe, come on, Samo, Lomo. Akiyale, Akiyale.
Journey through the world, over land and over sea. I see different cultures and different people's ways. I was born where the sun never sets and never rises. I was born where the heat is like a second skin. Crying on the streets, automobiles are making noise. The land is growing dry and weak, spirits dying low. The forefathers are calling me and never tire, never weaken. The pride in me is bursting loose, an African boy. My father called me down behind a tree. He said, prostrate at my feet and say a few prayers. Then he told me all the stories of my brave ancestors. Said, look into my eyes, son, you were born to be great. So in the twilight I went home behind my father with a hoe, listening to the voice of birds whisper hours of the night I was singing 7 goats, 7 beats, 7 carries, 7 nuts, 7 lives, that's what I've got. I'm an African boy. Over sea, over land, over mountains in the wild. I'll be brave and I'll be strong. I'm an African boy. In the evening, mother called me down into her heart. She said, lay upon my bosom and say a few prayers. Then she told me to go forward, never looking back. Spirits are with you, and you will never fail. So I go into the wall, into the deeps, into the wild. In the marketplace I dance, the sound of bata dancing. 7 jumps, 7 wriggles, 7 carries, 7 nuts, 7 lives, that's what I've got. I'm an African boy. Over sea, over land, over mountains and the wild. I'll be brave and I'll be strong. I'm an African boy. Goats, 7 beats, 7 carries, 7 nuts, 7 lives, that's what I've got. I'm an African boy. Over sea, over land, over mountains and in the wild. I'll be brave and I'll be strong. I'm an African boy. Said I can feel it deep in my soul. 7 carries, 7 nuts, 7 lives, that's what I've got. I'm an African boy. I can feel it deep in my soul. Over mountains in the wild. I can feel it deep in my soul. The future will be nice. 7 goats, 7 jumps, 7 wriggles, 7 carries, 7 nuts, 7 lives, that's what I've got. I want you walking dancing over sea, over land, over mountains in the wild. I'll be brave and I'll be strong. Yeah. 7 jumps, 7 wriggles, 7 carries, 7 nuts, 7 lives, that's what I've got. I'm an African boy. Over sea, over land, over mountains in the wild. I'll be brave and I'll be strong. I'm an mi gbọ́rọ̀ kan wò ọ̀rọ̀ yìí ń ká mi láyà mo wí o ọmọ kan ń bẹ tí mo fẹ́ràn o tí wọ́n ṣe bá a sọ̀rọ̀ kò yé mi rárá o n kò rí irú ẹ̀rí èyí rí o n kò rí irú ìfẹ́ èyí rí o ọmọ tó níwà tó sì lẹ́wà o mo fẹ́ mọ̀ lè rẹ o kí n máa bá ẹ lọ. Jọ̀wọ́ mo fẹ́ mọ àwọn òbí rẹ o bèbí mi yé jọ̀wọ́ mo fẹ́ mọ àwọn ọ̀rẹ́ rẹ o ọmọ oníwà tútù yìí o mo fẹ́ mọ̀ lè rẹ o kí n máa bá ẹ lọ bèbí jẹ́ máa bá ẹ lọ ọ̀ní kí n máa bá ẹ lọ olólùfẹ́ jẹ́ máa bá ẹ lọ. Oh, what a feeling, running me on love, I can't help myself, baby, I wanna love you, I wanna be with you, both night and day, share my life with you, baby, I wanna love you. Oh, what a feeling, knocking up my lips, I can't express myself, baby, I wanna love you, I wanna be with you, roll in your hands, I'm baby to you. Ọjọ́ sí ọmọdé ìgbójú sókè wá gbá o tágbà bá ń rojọ́ ọmọdé wọn pa lọ́lọ́ ni o lọ́jọ́ ọjọ́ sí àwọn àgbà ìhùwà ìbàjẹ́ o tí wọ́n bá ṣèbàjẹ́ a ó ṣe fún wọn. Ẹja máa bá wọn sọ kí wọ́n má ṣe hùwà ìbàjẹ́ mọ́ o. Ẹja máa bá wọn sọ kí wọ́n má ṣe hùwà ìkà yìí o. Ẹja máa bá wọn sọ kí wọ́n má ṣe hùwà ìbàjẹ́ mọ́ o. Ẹja máa bá wọn sọ kí wọ́n má ṣe hùwà ìkà. One more time. Ẹja máa bá wọn sọ kí wọ́n má ṣe hùwà ìbàjẹ́ mọ́ o. Ẹja máa bá wọn sọ kí wọ́n má ṣe hùwà ìkà yìí o. Ẹja máa bá wọn sọ kí wọ́n má ṣe hùwà ìbàjẹ́ mọ́ o. Ẹja máa bá wọn sọ kí wọ́n má ṣe hùwà ìkà. I see them everywhere on the streets, wasting their lives away. Youth can find no direction to put their energy. I see them in Europe and America looking for hope. Everywhere they go, they're lonely, can't find a warm bed. You like to see the children cry and waste their lives away, my. You like to see them die before their time. Poverty seems you like to see the people cry in frustration and desperation. You like to see them flee and leave this land so full of promise. I see them everywhere in factories and plantations. A new wave of slavery and servitude in foreign lands. I see them in Asia, Australia, wherever you may think. Everywhere they go, they're lonely. There's no place like home. You like to see your children cry and waste their lives away, my brother. You like to see them die before their time in poverty. Seems you like to see the people cry in frustration and desperation. You like to see them flee and leave this land so full of promise. You like to see the children. You like to see the children. You like to see the children. You like to see them die, brother. You like to see the children. You like to see the children. See the children. You like to see them die. lọ́jọ́ ọjọ́ sí ọmọdé ìgbójú sókè wá gbá òwò tágbà bá ń rojọ́ ọmọdé wọn pa lọ́lọ́lọ́lọ́ ní ìhòòhò lọ́jọ́ ọjọ́ sí àwọn àgbà ìwùwà ìbàjẹ́ o tí wọ́n bá ṣèbàjẹ́ a ó ṣìgbà fún wọn ni o ọ̀rẹ́ ẹ jẹ́ a máa sọ jẹ́ a máa bá wọn sọ ẹ máa bá wọn sọ ẹ máa bá wọn sọ ẹ máa bá wọn sọ. ọmọ ṣe hùwà ìkà yìí o ẹ jẹ́ a máa bá wọn sọ o ọmọ ṣe hùwà ìbàjẹ́ mọ́ o ọ̀rẹ́ ẹ jẹ́ a máa bá wọn sọ o ọmọ ṣe hùwà ìkà. Let's go again. ẹ máa bá wọn sọ o ọ̀rẹ́ ẹ jẹ́ a máa bá wọn sọ o.
All these hungry leaders stealing from the poor. We must start to speak out for the poor, for the young people. Speak out for the children. Speak out for the women. See, we must speak out, Speak out in every way we can. Speak out for the young people found all over the world.
Everybody.
Cody.
So big baby love, I don't be your uncle. make her confused. You do wala like a Cameroon. You mesmerize the boys. Baby, make her confused. Commando, you command the boys with his overload. I got your body wash it. As long as you give me my portion. Baby, make you know the rush it. I make you put it with caution. Leg over. I'm a give me leg over. Hangover. And I'm a give me hangover. And to body that's how they see me land. I want it up. I can't take your pain away, but I can make you feel better. If you stay another day, yeah, all of it, you can move it together. From sundown to sun up, we go walk the walk together. We go do the do forever. From sundown to sun up, we go walk the walk together. We go do the do forever. Baby, wait for me. Oh. Would you stay with me? No regret, baby. Oh. Yeah. Like a soldier, would you stand for me? Ever been very. Baby, wait for me. Oh. Charlotte Langy, oh. Would you stay with me? Ìyàwó ló sọ bẹ́ẹ̀ fọ́kọ rẹ̀ ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀. No regret, baby. Oh. No regret. Like a soldier, will you fight for me? Olórí tí bẹ́ẹ̀ bá ń fẹ́ràn rẹ̀. Olórí tó fẹ́ràn rẹ̀. Ó yá lọ. Agati girl, I go never acting for you. If the guys on different, and you be the one I go kill for you. Baby, can you be jealous? And company no go leave me, oh. Baby, 1 in a million. Make a chop for your million. See now we see, baby. Maya, 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 oh. And every day we get fire, 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 oh. See what, baby? Malo, 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 oh. Your love food, the jaja, 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 oh. Go, 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 shawty. Girl, it's your birthday. Go, 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 shawty. Tell me what I want, you know it's your birthday. Go, 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 shawty. We gonna, you know it's your birthday. Go, 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 shawty. You know it's so like I'm malale. Dance to the beat, no the fast rate. Like in the way you concentrate. The way that you want that your body. Baby, come malale. Dance to the beat, no the fast rate. Like in the way you concentrate. The way that you want that your body. Kill it, bitch, don't you like we see, baby. Maya, 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 oh. And every time we got fire, 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 oh. See what baby, malo, 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 oh. Girl, love food, jaja, 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 oh. Yeah. Whatever you gonna, I'll go out to y'all. I said, what you got? Hey. Àwọn ọ̀rẹ́ ìyàwó ni mò ń wò lọ́ọ̀kan yìí. Ó yá ẹ súnmọ́ mi síbi tọwọ́tọwọ́. Ẹ súnmọ́ bí náà. Fọyọ́ kẹ́sì o. Lélẹ́lẹ́. Fọyọ́ kẹ́sì o.
Hey, attention, please. Attention, please. We are expected to go back to our seat as the next session is about to start. No, we can't keep our presenters waiting. Is it about Python? Dr. Leroy, it's nice to have you around. Dr. Lauren, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great.
Okay, so we'll be with you shortly. We went into a breakout session while waiting for your presentation. So just give us about 3 minutes and we'll be with you.
Sure.
Would that be fine?
Yeah, totally.
Oh, thank you. Okay, thank you, everybody. It's time to go. It's time to go to. It's time to go to Richmond.
Come over to Virginia.
You have a free visa to the United States, courtesy of Dr. Lauren Tilton. Is that correct?
I'll add a new slot.
Person talking. Okay, let me come on the camera. Yeah, this is my face. Oh, okay. Yeah. So can we come together, please? Okay. We have to suspend all the breakout session. Thank you. We will expel some people from this summer school. There are consequences for what it means is that we are going to take deduct some marks from your group's presentation for being disobedient. Okay, let's come together. Can we please put our hands together for ourselves? Let's put our hands together for ourselves. Let's put our hands together for ourselves. Okay, let's have the next session. Thank you. You know, we are going to have Python for dinner. You prefer a cobra? Who will take the head? We promise to serve you Python. Imported from where? Brazil? No. No, let's eat African Python. Okay, so let's sit. Let's have a seat. Dr. Lauren Tweeting, did I pronounce your name correctly?
Tilton, but most people call me Dr. T.
You seem to be muted. Please unmute yourself.
I think, oh, can you hear me?
I think it's from our end.
I can hear you. Oh, maybe that helps.
Okay, we can hear you now.
Great. Yeah, Dr. Tilton, but many call me Dr. T.
Okay. Dr. T, is that fine?
Yeah.
I call my wife Mrs. T.
I like her name.
Okay, let's have a seat. May I please I'm trying to. So, Dr. T, just like we have adopted just now, Okay. Dr. T is from the Richmond University in the United States of America. She'll be talking to us this afternoon. It's evening here. She'll be talking to us this evening in the Lagos, the third Lagos Summer School in Digital Humanities. Nobody. She'll be talking to us on a very important aspect of digital humanities, and that is the possibilities of our studio for humanity research within the context of DH and computational humanities. I'm sure we are going to have a wonderful time during this session, just like we've been having. So before I hand over to Dr. Lauren Tilton, can we please put our hands together for her? Thank you. Our hands together, please. Let's put our hands together. Okay, so Dr. Tilton, Professor Tunde Okpe Davis would like to have just a word with you.
Okay. Lauren, thank you very much. You're online.
Yes.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Thank you so much for actually accepting our invitation and then coming to share your experience and expertise with us. We've been here for the past 3 or 4 days, and it's been a wonderful time learning some of the principles and then some of the things we need to learn about DH. So this is Lagos. We have participants from about 6 countries in Africa, and then we have also from Nigeria here. So it's a pleasure and honor to actually have you to take your class this evening. So please, over to you and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry. It's a pleasure to join y'all today or this evening and to be a part of this amazing event. I just want to first congratulate the organizers on an amazing week and schedule. These events take an incredible amount of work to organize. So I just want to start with a thank you and congrats for that. So let's see, I'm going to start sharing. I'm going to actually share a few slides with everyone. Well, let me reframe. So I'm going to start this talk with a little bit about what is the programming language, what is our studio and our cloud, and then I'm going to show you a little bit today about what we can do with our studio and then our cloud. And then I believe tomorrow, I think there'll be a little more time, and I show a little bit more about how you can actually get our cloud studio running for you and what it might be able to do for your scholarship. So today will be a little bit more meta, a little bit more like what's possible, and then we will move into a little bit more hands-on, which we might have a little bit of time for today. So let me share my screen. Okay. Okay. Can someone confirm that you can see the screen that I have up right now? Let's see. Actually, maybe I'll show it in this mode so it's a little bit easier for me to see y'all. Let's see. Okay, can you see the screen that is up right now? It looks like you can, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. I will leave it actually in this mode because I think it's the easiest way for me to see it as well without two screens. So today what I want to talk a little bit about is the programming language R, and why what it can be possible for work in the computational humanities, and what you might be able to do with it, and why it's very exciting. So many of you might be familiar with other programming languages such as Python, which is a very similar world. And the idea behind these programming languages is that you're able to take data and analyze it in some way. And so one of the reasons why programming is so great is it gives us a lot of flexibility that out-of-the-box tools may often, we can hit constraints with out-of-the-box tools. So if you're interested in text analysis, you may have heard of a tool like Voyant, or Mallet for topic modeling. If you're interested in network analysis, you might have heard of a tool called Gephi, G-E-P-H-I, which is a very popular networking to do network analysis. Other tools include a lot of mapping tools for mapping methods, such as ArcGIS or Carto or Mapbox, and there's other tools for this as well. And what they give you is a really great interface for doing a certain set of analyses that the tool has set up for, has prioritized. But one of the interests of doing programming and learning how to program is that there's entire communities that are really excited about how to make that programming language do all kinds of things. So instead of a programming language really being about just text analysis or just spatial analysis or just network analysis, by learning a programming language, we can actually do all of these things. And as many know, with the digital humanities, often we're interested in not just using one method, but many times multiple methods at once. Mapping and text analysis and networks and archives building and data building. So we have all these different things that we're really interested in. So one of the perks of R is that it's an open source programming language, which means it's free, anyone can use it. And it is really built for data analysis, for working with data to analyze it through many of the methods that I've already mentioned before. And the other really great part of it is that there's often really large user communities around this. There's a very actually growing community for DH folks around who are involved with R. There's a whole DH community built around Python and other languages. And so the real great part about it is it gives us a lot of flexibility, and what it's really also really helpful with is what is called exploratory data analysis. So the idea behind exploratory data analysis is that it's also a method. So let's say we have some data and we don't entirely know what all we want to learn about it yet. But we know we have some questions we want to ask. We can actually use exploratory data analysis as a way of knowing. It's a way of actually doing analysis and forming evidence around the questions that we care about. And it's called EDA. It helps us actually learn about our data in really interesting ways. And when I say I'm talking about data, I'm going to look a little bit about how the ways that data often get structured. So often what happens in a lot of DH projects is we have something we're really interested in learning about. Say, in my case, been very interested in learning about photography. And we have all this metadata about the photographs, such as the photographer, the photographer, and the date and the location. And what we can do is turn that into structured data, as you see on the far right, that we can actually then begin to count. We can count how many photographers, we can count what years the photographs were taken. We can start to see where people took photographs, and then we start to be able to understand more and more and more about this photography collection using the structured data on the right. And the programming language R in particular is very good for this sort of tabular structured data that you see on the far right, which is often what a lot of data sets look like that people create in DH. And so we can do this sort of exploratory data analysis I just mentioned to then look to start to learn something about our data. So we can start to do bar charts and scatter plots and all kinds of visualizations that help us interpret our data. And actually this can become evidence about whatever we're studying. This is very common in linguistics or folks who study, say, language and language trends. Many who study, say, literature and are interested in which books are maybe stylistically or like other books. In our case, we were interested in, you'll see on this box plot, we were interested in when different photographers took photographs and how many photographs they took and where they took those photographs. So in this case, we were working with 170,000 photographs. It's really hard to count them individually, but we could use the structured data to find out, for example, that John Vachon, this photographer, was very much took photos in sort of more rural areas. Another set of photographers on the top took photographs in much more urban settings. And then we can start to learn a lot about the visual culture of that period of those photographs. So one of the things that we can then do is take structured data and do all kinds of data analysis about them. And I'll show, let me move this up quickly. So one thing you'll see then is the scholarship sort of comes in two major ways. One is that we're seeing a lot of this kind of scholarship in DH coming out in journals such as places like the Journal of Cultural Analytics, where people are taking a data set and they are doing a computational analysis, primarily a statistical analysis of the data, and then they are making some sort of argument about their object of study. So in this case, this particular Melanie Walsh and Maria Antoniak were looking at how people reviewed different books on the website Goodreads to understand how reception in readers in relation to books, so sort of reception theory piece. And we're seeing a lot more of this work coming out that has these plots and sort of exploratory data analysis work in it to structure, to look at that, to study an object of study. And a lot of this scholarship and what's increasingly being called the computational humanities comes in a few forms, but one of the most prominent is sort of your classic journal article or book where there's a lot of text and the article describes what these graphs and charts mean, and then use those to make an argument about whatever topic it is that they are studying. And I highlight the Journal of Cultural Analytics up here because it's a really great place to go see where a lot of folks are doing computational humanities work. So using programming languages like R and Python to analyze, study, and interpret the data that they are interested in. So in this case, it was reviews of books. In my case, it's information about photography. And others, it's been interest in actually doing distant reading of some sort. So actually looking at some feature of a lot of books, say style of writing, genre, asking questions about genre of books. And pieces like that. So Journal of Cultural Analytics is a really great spot to see where a lot of this work is coming out that brings these different pieces together. And I point this out because you see these great plots, but really what's sitting underneath them is a sort of exploratory data analysis method that helps shape the way they did the data analysis, that then that produced the visualizations that become the heart of the arguments of this scholarship, and I think and so the computational work gets kind of embedded inside of that. The other way we're seeing some of this work come out, where people are working a lot with basically data analysis using using a programming languages is also in places that are maybe a little, I think, a little less obvious, but they actually undergird and what the project looks like. So for example, I'm offering an example here of a project called Photogrammar. And this is a project that I work on, where what we did was we took that metadata. I showed you data a little bit earlier that was in the spreadsheet, and it's the data we're going to work with in the workshop. And what we did was we just started to build a bunch of graphs working with it. So what we did was we created a timeline to see when the photographs were taken over time. We looked at the counts of how many photographs each photographer took, and you can see that represented here on the right with number of photos taken each month. So the more purple, the more photographs taken, and then the lighter the purple, the lesser photographs. So from lighter to darker is from less to more photographs in the visualization. And then we map these photos. And if you go to photogrammar.org, you're going to see a really cool interactive visualization built in React, which is a web development framework. But the conceptual ideas that undergird Photogrammar was using the programming language R to just explore the data about these photographs, these 170,000 photographs, and then just building a series of plots, which I've already shown you in the programming language, to get to this argument. And actually, what you're seeing here is a visual argument. We argue that this is scholarship. One of the ways that this collection is understood, this is what's called the FSA OWI Photography Collection, Farm Security Administration, Office of War Information. It's one of the most important documentary photography collections of the 20th century in the United States. And it has often been understood as only about the American South. So those states like Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, and also this region on the bottom right. And then it's also been only understood as about the Dust Bowl, which was basically Oklahoma, North Texas, Arizona area. So another part of sort of Southwest United States. But by getting the data, putting it into the programming, putting it into R, and then taking the data and doing counts and saying, hey, how many photographs were taken in which state? Oh, and who took which photographs and where did they take them? And adding some more data about population density of the locations where the photographs were taken, we were able to show visually through timelines and some charts and graphs that our understanding of this collection was not accurate. Actually, this collection was taken across the United States in many more urban spaces than people have realized. And the collection wasn't just about the Great Depression, but World War II as well. And that opens up then a whole nother set of questions about what the federal government was up to. Why were they sending these photographers everywhere? Why did they let them go all over the country if that wasn't the immediate purpose of the reason the government hired these photographers? Why did what's the vision that these famous photographers had about the United States? And so we turned all of the insights and questions from doing the data analysis in R into an interactive digital public humanities project that anyone can go and access and play with the data and explore the data at scale. And so that's another way where R was really, really fundamental for the computational humanities, for thinking about how do we analyze and interpret that data, and then how do we communicate it to audiences and actually shift humanities scholarship about a topic, and for scholars of 20th century United States cultural history and American photography, this is a really fundamental shift in how we understand what this collection was about, and it opens up a whole other set of scholarship that And again, this was all made possible in part because of structured data that we could then do the analysis in R and using the R programming language. And I'll pause for 1 second in case there's any questions.
Please go ahead, go on.
Okay. So I keep talking about this R programming language. And so what does that mean? Well, so R, you can install R on your own machine. Anyone can do this with this programming language. And what it does is if you can go to the site, it's cran.r-project.org, and you can, there's hundreds of copies of it. You can download it for your machine. And what it will do is it will basically load, it will download to your computer, and you can, in your terminal, use R very quickly. I suspect that many will not, but using the terminal is quite challenging. So why I mentioned RStudio in this presentation is because this company called RStudio created an interface so that you could actually use this software, use this programming language in a really nice GUI, a really nice interface that gives the user a lot more ability to see what's happening. For those who've ever worked on the terminal, it's sort of it just is like a blank screen, and you just got to kind of keep typing in, and it can be really challenging because you have to really start to remember in your mind what data you loaded in, and what all your commands were, and your functions and libraries. And as you keep moving, it can get a little bit challenging. So what RStudio does is it says, hey, there's this programming language R. You're welcome to download it and use it on your machine, but you could also download this client, this software called RStudio, and run it locally on your machine as well. And it will give you this interface. And the nice part about it is you'll have a code editor, so you can adjust your code and all your writing in here. You then have the console on the bottom, which basically acts like what you would see on a terminal, in the terminal. And it lets you see what's happening to the code and if there's an error, and you can watch it kind of processing, which is really great. What's probably, I think, the most amazing part, the most helpful part about this even among the most, is this workspace and history on the top right of the interface. And what this allows one to do is it makes space on there to, you can actually keep track of all your variables, and the data, and helps make sure that when you think you're assigning certain data, the data is the right data, and how you've assigned variables, which we'll talk a little bit more in a little bit about assigning variables. You can actually keep track of everything. And then on the bottom right, we'll show you the file system and the plots and the packages. So basically, it gives a really nice user interface for all the things that are happening in the terminal, but you can actually see it and keep track. And I know for me, it's been really, really helpful when I've been learning how to code and learning how to do that. So one of the things, learning how to code. So one of the pieces then there's a part of this is that we'll have the programming language, but then we will have what is called a .rmd, which is an R markdown file. So some of you might be familiar with what are just plain markdown files, .md. And so markdown is just a format for writing code in a plain text format that allows you to use a few symbols to help, say, make headers and italics and others. And it's a really, it's a kind of pretty, it's a really, be able to, but it's a really, it's a file format that is has a lot of information, but it's not too big. And so this is very popular. A markdown file is very popular in, like, say, minimal computing, where particularly if you want to pay close attention to environments where internet may be slower, or you want to make sure the site runs really fast no matter where someone is. Markdown files are this really amazing tool, and there's now all these web development tools that one can use to build websites from Markdown files. It's also, Markdown files are really great because as I'm sure all of y'all know, for example, Microsoft Products is a proprietary company. So when your file is, you make a Word document and it's .x, that's actually a proprietary file format. So this probably won't happen, but in theory, if Microsoft decided they didn't want to support those file formats anymore, it's not a guarantee we could always open those file formats. Some may know this from past products where you may have typed in software from the 90s or early 2000s and you can't open it anymore, or built databases. Because they're in these proprietary file formats. So one of the things that Markdown does is it's an open file format. So it doesn't need rely on proprietary software to open it. And it's a little bit more universal than other pieces. This is also the case for data. So if you're building a database and your spreadsheet that will turn into a database, and let's say you're using Microsoft Excel and you got .xlt as your back of the data, that's a proprietary format. So often I'll say when we create data, we want to make sure it's a .csv, a comma separated values as the actual format, so that data can always speak to each other. So it's a little bit of a side piece about open formats, but they become really important, particularly when you're doing programming. These file formats and proprietary file formats become a real challenge if they don't speak to each other. So the perk of an R Markdown file is it allows us to, moving around there, it allows us to write code, such as you see this print, and this little print/welcome, and you hit the little play and it will run that code. But it allows us to actually describe our code around it and what exactly we are doing. If you were to just get a .r file, you'd have to do a lot of work if you want to comment out in it and put notes. There's a lot of things you'd have to do to make sure you don't, that the script still runs. But this format is really fabulous because it kind of combines two worlds. It combines our open source programming R with our open source or our open standards text format and puts them together so we can always describe what we're doing. So you'll see the one little piece I have here, I have a description of what R Markdown is, and you can print, and it allows us to keep describing all of our work. And one benefit of the R Markdown piece too is that in RStudio Cloud, in RStudio, you can actually write your programming. You can write your code. You can describe your code, which is always, if you particularly want to publish work based on coding, often increasingly people will ask for the data and the scripts to see how someone made those decisions. And so you can, in R Markdown, have your descriptions of your code, the code itself that's going to run, and then you can actually just turn it into a PDF, or you can put it on a browser. So some of the cool things you'll see online is that people who have online tutorials for R, often they're an R Markdown file that then they use HTML5 to put online, and it looks like a cool book or resource. So you can actually then go all the way down on that piece. So the last piece here is we're going to actually be using a tool, one more layer of abstraction, which is RStudio Cloud. So RStudio Cloud is taking the R, so it's our programming language. We have RStudio that's you can load locally on your computer, or you can use RStudio Cloud, which is basically literally just RStudio in the cloud. So it's browser based. And we can use this browser, we can actually use RStudio from anywhere. It doesn't just have to work on your own machine, which I find really important for those in particular who who are already really know R well, or maybe get really excited about R, and particularly are interested in maybe using it with colleagues or teaching with it or other things. This is really great particularly if people's own machine is older or does not have as much power behind it. So I often have, I've bypassed in my classes where students have significantly older computers, and they can then always use RStudio Cloud and have all the memory and RAM that they need because everything's is on the cloud, is on a server elsewhere. So their own machine isn't as, it's not as reliant on personal hardware and personal machines as that. So that's what we're gonna do a little bit with it. And what I'm gonna show you a little bit today is it's gonna be using this RStudio Cloud. You can do this partially for free, but then it does start to cost money because you're using, one is using server space and computational power on a server somewhere else. And so basically one is paying to get access to that server to run the code. So we're kind of going in tiers of payment, but at the end of the day, anyone can always just install R on their local machine, on your own machine, and it's open access and open source, and open source, the same thing, and you have access to it. That is like moving us through. Let me show one more thing. I just want to put these up really quickly. So these are one of the things I wanted to show in the sort of first explanation of RStudio and why we use it. Is I think it's always important to know sort of like what might be, why does one want to learn how to program, and what might the payoffs be. So I already focused on some examples from the Journal of Cultural Analytics and our own digital public project, Photogrammer, but I wanted to put these sources up to like the Digital Humanities Quarterly, Digital Scholarship, and the Humanities as two other journals that have a lot of work that involves people using programming, R or Python, and also have a lot of articles about how to work with R and Python as well. And then I also want to highlight the Programming Historian. On there are many, many tutorials for how to do different things with R, such as basic text processing, basic visualization, data visualization. And so there's a whole, and then I put out our site, humanities-data.org, that includes some more resources for learning how to work with R. And a lot of them have sort of step-by-step instructions for how to work in it. So, because my goal for today and for tomorrow is to hopefully show the payoff of learning how to program, even if it's not as, and so being less worried about if one understands the details of programming, or because that just takes time, and it takes sitting down for hours on end and just trying to play around and learn. But what I'm hoping for today and tomorrow is that for those who are thinking about it, that they understand that there's ideas of like what might be possible and what could one do. So that's sort of that piece. Okay, so before I turn to the data that we're gonna work with, are there any questions or feedback or idea? Any questions? Nope. The local image has gone away, but so I can't see y'all anymore. But hopefully, maybe someone can hear me still. Cool. Maybe I've lost everyone.
Okay.
Oh,
There
there
is
we
a
go.
question, yes.
Oh, there we go.
All right. Okay, thank you so much for the much you've done. I am Anthony Ano. I'd like to know whether our studio deals with photographs only. Because from what you've given us, you've looked at photographs, and then looking at the term for the tool itself, studio. So I'd like to know if that is just all it deals with, whether with photographs or other forms of data can come in. That's it.
Great. Thank you. Yes, no, it's absolutely not just photographs. In fact, it is mostly structured data and text data is actually and numerical data is going to be its bread and butter of our studio, of R. So a lot of the data is going to be in a structured data set, and I'm going to try to get this loaded right now to show you an example of what actually a lot of data actually looks like when it goes into R. I work with images as images, but often we're just working with strings. So the data type and in a structured database. So to give you a quick example, this is not going to be happening on that. Hold on 1 second. You can see my screen right now, I think, right? So a lot of the data is going to look like just text or text and number and letter and numbers. So in this case, we have names and location information, longitude and latitude, dates, and textual descriptions of the photos. So a lot of the data is going to be columns and rows. But you can definitely work with images. Yeah. Let me just check about how much more time we have for today. I think 45 minutes for today, or
Okay. Maybe less than 10 minutes.
Okay, great. That'll be perfect. So what I'm going to then do for the 10 minutes today is show a little bit about this environment. So I've now logged into our studio here. Let me open the first notebook. And so you will see the same environment that I mentioned earlier today, that there is the coding area in this block up here. So these are our markdown files that one can work with. That have the code. Then there's a console down here that shows when the code runs. We also then have information over here of like all the files that we need to run the code. And then up here is the environment with all of the different variables and pieces of it. So what the basics then for this is that we'll always need a script in order to run a line of code inside of it. So what you're seeing here is that our markdown file where I've offered a quick description of what's going on here. And inside of these little pieces of little brackets is the line of code. And so what RStudio does then is by pressing play, we can begin to run the code that we write inside of these little gray areas that are denoted by this these little brackets. So anything between these brackets is a code that we can run. And so in this case, I just did a first example just to show how it works, which is basically R acting like a very, very complicated calculator in this first part. And it comes with a series of out-of-the-box standard tools that we can work with as a part of it. As a part of it. But the real power of it is that what we can do is use what are called libraries. And these libraries are basically whole blocks of code that other people have built that give us functions we can do that run things out of the box for our data. So what's really great is that we don't have to always custom write the code for everything. These libraries exist that give us a whole set of methods that we can draw on. So I sort of talk about them as like it's like having a book. So let's say you have a desk and that's the RStudio cloud environment. And you are working on a research paper, but you need to draw on some scholarship and theory from, scholar of your choice. So in my case, I might go get a book by Laura Wexler or a book by another scholar or another theorist. And I'm going to put those books on my desk so that I can always flip through them to get their quotes from them and arguments and draw on that work. You can think of libraries as similar. Libraries are sort of like saying, there's a lot of books out there, but I'm going to put those books on my desk so I can use them to analyze my data. So in this case, we're going to pull in two libraries. I'm going to show you this loads in two libraries. Library one, a library called readr, and library called ggplot. And this helps us read data sets, and ggplot helps us do data visualizations. And there's an entire world of these books, basically, that we can put into our library on our desk. And ggplot and readr are part of what's called the tidyverse. So a lot of people will work with what's called tidy data. And the tidyverse is a really popular kind of ecosystem of libraries that are designed around data analysis. And so once we have these sort of tools and pieces that we can work with, what we have to then do is load in our data. So it's like basically, what do we want to analyze? What do we want to apply these methods to? And so what we do is we often have data that is structured with variables and observations. So the observational unit is usually the column and the variables are the row. So this is in each of the features in there is what's called the value. And that's kind of one of the most popular ways to structure data. And it has to really be structured this way to do a lot of types of data analysis. This becomes this relationship between observations and variables becomes really key for a lot of data analysis. So the last thing I'm going to do today is show what happens when you have a data set. So I created a data set already, a CSV file, like I mentioned before, and I'm just showing the top of that data set. And this data set is those photographs, but it's actually the metadata about those photographs. So we have a photograph. These links link to the archive at the Library of Congress, the image archive. And then for each row is an observation. So in my case, each row is a photograph, and then each variable is a feature about that photograph. So in this case, this first photograph by Dorothea Lange, it's from the country, from the United States. It's from the state California, and then the county. And then what we did was we added what's called longitude. We did longitude and latitude for each photograph, so we can map the photograph. And then we added information like some categorizations that the photographs had, the year the photograph was taken, and then the caption of the photograph, how that photograph was described. This could be books. So each observation, so each row could be a book, or it could be a tweet. And you might have the username of the person you tweeted, the date that was tweeted, the time stamp of the tweet, the location of the tweet, and then the text of the tweet. This could be, as I said, the same for books. It could be book 1 by author, an author. You could say the book was published, what country the book was published in, probably not longitude and latitude, but then you might have the year the book was published, and then you could have the whole text of the book as a part of it as well. So this could be any number of things, but the general best practice for data in this case is to have observations and then variables, and then the whole thing is one as an observational unit. So say just books or just photos in that way. And so this is our data. And then we have only a few more minutes, so I'll show you what we're gonna look at a little bit tomorrow. Once I've done all of that work, I can begin to start doing some data analysis and start charting and graphing that data and start to see what that data can tell me. What can we do using that exploratory data analysis? What can I begin to learn about my data, and how might I be able to learn something interesting and new about it? And all these different ways that visualizations are opened up by this one set of libraries in the programming in R, and do this on the cloud. I'm just scrolling through so you get a sense of everything that we can do tomorrow and walk through and start to see that data come to life in a brand new way. And in this case, I never have to move tools. I never have to leave tools. I can just keep working in the same environment over and over and over again, and start to do networks, graphs, text analysis, and mapping all in one, all in the same space, all because we made the data look with some observations and variables, and then opened up to the whole world of R, the programming language R, and the whole user community around it, all available in the same space, all at once.
Round of applause. Please, a round of applause for Lauren. By tomorrow, if you sleep over this night, and then some angels brought some questions, you write them down. Tomorrow, when she eventually comes, you can actually represent those questions. Is that understood? Thank you so much, Lauren. We wait for you tomorrow. And then I'm sure that by this night, they will have to ponder over whatever they have learned today. And by tomorrow, it will be a better conversation and engagement. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. It has been a pleasure having you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Look forward to seeing you all tomorrow.
Bye.
Have a good evening.
Okay, so you understand. The program has been structured in a way just like medical doctors. If you have a problem, no matter how you dislike bitter drugs or medication, they will still have to prescribe bitter drugs. Is it not so? Bitter drugs, they prescribe it. Programming is a very major part of, even though we encourage people to collaborate, but if you know programming, you have done over 50% of digital humanities. Yes. What he's trying to explain It's very simple if you are a programmer. Because it is to write those, no matter the data you are using, it is the language, the coding and the decoding. That is all what it takes. So you can pick anything, whether it is a static image, whether it is a moving image, whatever it is. It all depends. I want to quickly give us some information. We are making progress. What I mean is that, hello? Hello? What I mean is that tomorrow, whether we like it or not, Lauren will still have to come back. So, and we need to use this night. We need to read up, and by tomorrow we will engage her. For our participants from outside the country, please listen attentively. That you will have to fly your plane depends on this. Except you have become so much in love with Nigeria, you don't want to go back. These following people, we have to take there on 14th, which is next tomorrow. The people that chose Arrive Alive, that is number 35, Cole Street, off Maboda Sojo Elegba here. Akusi, Elanga, Ngo, and Manifi. 4 of you will have to go there by 9 to 12. We make arrangement for your movement. Then then this lab, 54 Gen Medical Lab, it is in Grandeur Event Center, 17 Billings Way, Oregon, Ikeja. So only Jean Paul. Jean Paul, are you here? So remember, you will have to be there by 10. But for tomorrow is very important. Tomorrow, for people that are okay, Motala, is he around? Okay, your own is by 12 p.m. and that is Accounts Lab. I'm going to tell you how we are going to move. Accounts Lab is at Adeni Jones, Ikeja. Some of you wanted to see Lagos well. As you are moving, you will be able to see Lagos well. So, no, the people I'm calling is tomorrow. Everybody I'm calling is tomorrow. All the people I'm going to call is tomorrow. Yes, I'm saying that is because we may not have time for excursion again. And so, as you are going to Ikeja, you try to be looking out. You will see places. Then number 2, Afri Global Medicare. That is 20, Ladoke Akintola Street, Ikeja City, GRA. Justica. Jonathan. Napoleon is around. Please inform him. 9 to 12. Yes, 9 to 12. Arrive Alive, 35. Is Ojo Elegba here? This one is not. It's just here. Dr. Tano. Okay. Kofi. Okay. Pascal. Ashton. Okay. Kadidia. Okay. Then Sadio. Okay. All of you are going to, I'm going to make provision for 2 Uber cabs. And so, this person will have to join you. Kenneth. Okay, so Joe Elegba, either Kenneth or Kuma will have to join you. Okay, Kenneth, is he around? Okay, please inform him his own is also between 9 to 5, so he can choose to go by 9. And his own is Sen Lab, 42 Oduduwa Crescent, Ikeja, GRA. And then also Biologics Labs, that is village, Akuma. All this, if we have to arrange in the morning, immediately after the breakfast. Yes, tomorrow. Immediately after breakfast, I would have called the Uber, then we come out, we start moving. Few of you, they have car, they have SIM. Yes. Because we have to connect with you people as you are there. in case, I just have to, in case. When I travel to Cote d'Ivoire or anywhere, nobody used to take me around. Really? Yes, nobody. Oui, en tant que chercheur, je dois explorer. I don't need anybody to take me around. But not in Lagos, but you understand, Lagos, I told you that Lagos. Okay. So you can copy, you can. This is a feedback for the summer school. It's not yet active, but maybe after when? By tomorrow. Please. The feedback, make sure you do the feedback for us. Please, do you have any question? Yes. You are alone. Which one is your lab? Because you are the one that shows the lab. I told all the participants from Mali to choose. I told you to choose a lab, but some of them did not. I told you to choose Arrive Alive because it is very close here. You can even trek to the place. Yeah. Hey, you didn't ask. You didn't ask. If you are going to a place, you will be asking questions. They were asking. They were saying, what do we choose? Then they snap and sent. I said, choose this one. They asked. You wouldn't follow him because he thinks he's a Nigerian now. So, any other question? Gem Medical Lab. 54? Let me see. 54, Billing Way. That is your lab. Okay? I hope you have gotten where your lab is. I will repeat again the last time. Motala, you are also alone. And your lab is accounts lab. It is at Ikeja. But it doesn't mean you are going alone. I'm going to arrange it that maybe they drop you and they will continue. That 4 of you will still travel, go together. Arrive Alive. Oju Elegba. I say Dr. Tanu, Kofi, Pascal, Ashton, Kadidia, and Sadio. 6 of you are going there, and you will not possibly be in the same Uber. Uber will just have 4 people. And so I'm going to fix maybe 2 more people. Yes. Yes. Did you get me? Okay. For 54 Gen Medical Lab, Nicola. Oh, I didn't even mention this one before. Okay. You have Nicola. Welore. Where is she? The way you are moving everywhere, I don't think you want to go back. Huh?